You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Hello and welcome to Law Talk on Germantown Municipal Television. My name is Vince Perryman and I'm a local attorney with the law offices of J. Vincent Perryman. Each month, Law Talk focuses on a wide range of legal issues and topics. On today's show, we'll focus on the federal court system. With us now is Magistrate Judge Charmiane Claxton. Char, thanks for being with us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You know, we go back to being associates at some law firm somewhere out there, and now you're federal magistrate judge. So, you know, in thinking about today's topic, it was the whole thing of so many people don't understand the differences between federal court and state court, and just the attempt here is to try and clear that up as to what the federal court does, and then some people may be also saying, well, magistrate judge, is that different than a regular judge as well? So wherever you want to start with all of that.
Sure, that's a lot of ground to cover,
Yeah.
but we'll do what we can. So let's start with, I'll take the last topic first, which is where magistrate judges fit in the system. So when people think about the federal courts, oftentimes their first thought is the Supreme Court. And if you look at it as a hierarchy, a ladder, if you will, you start with the Supreme Court at the top, 9 judges, justices, excuse me, all appointed by the president, confirmed by the Senate. The next layer down is the Court of Appeals. There are 11 circuits throughout the country, and then there's what's called the Federal Circuit, which handles certain designated matters. Again, all of the judges on that level are nominated by the president, confirmed by the Senate. And then below that level is the trial court level, the district court. Again, each of those individuals who sit on the 95 districts that then the districts go up to the circuits, and then the circuits go to the Supreme. But again, each of those individuals is nominated by the president, confirmed by the Senate. Magistrate judges, and let me also say that each of the judges in the 3 layers that I just mentioned are what are called Article III judges. Why? Because their existence, their authority is derived from Article III of the Constitution. Magistrate judges, on the other hand, are creatures of statute. Our positions are found in Title 28, United States Code Section 630 et sec. And that's where our existence, responsibilities, and authority can be found. Magistrate judges are selected by district judges and are appointed to 8-year terms of office subject to reappointment, as opposed to the Article III judges who have lifetime appointments. Our responsibilities, very frequently we're called the utility fielders of the federal system. And so we conduct matters that are assigned or referred to us. So now, I guess in a sense, coming to the second question, or the first question now, second, which is the distinction between federal and state courts. Generally speaking, and let me stick with Tennessee for the moment, our Tennessee courts have kind of a 2-track system. You have the civil courts and the criminal courts. You do not have a civil judge doing criminal matters, except maybe a criminal contempt or something like that. And you certainly don't have a criminal judge handling civil matters. In federal court, it's a unitary court. We conduct civil and criminal matters. I can have a day where I handle civil matters and criminal matters almost interchangeably. In fact, Monday, I conducted a mediation in a civil case, but at the same time, I was the duty magistrate judge, and so I was handling search warrants, initial appearances, and things of that nature in between conducting, so I was doing civil and criminal law at the same time. So there's one distinction, is that our judges we handle both civil and criminal matters. Another distinction is that federal jurisdiction is very precise. We are courts of limited jurisdiction. The federal court doesn't just handle just anything. And so, for example, someone may think that, let's say if you and I are involved in a car accident, that matter would not come to federal court. Why? Because there is no subject matter jurisdiction. In other words, an automobile accident would not arise out of a federal statute or out of a constitutional matter. And there is no diversity of citizenship. You and I are both residents of the state of Tennessee. The amount at issue, the amount at controversy, would not be over $75,000 unless, of course, I hit your Rolls Royce, in which case it would exceed that. But then we're still both residents of Tennessee, and so there's no diversity there. That would be a matter for the state courts. There are some matters that can be brought in either. You can select the jurisdiction, and there are parties who may choose to remove a matter from state court to federal court if the federal court would have concurrent jurisdiction. There are some times when you may have a case that, by the nature of the case, there are matters of mixed state and federal question, and so the matter can be brought in federal court, and we'll take the state issue along with it. But if the federal matter is dismissed, maybe on motion, but the state issue remains, the federal court can decide whether or not to retain jurisdiction over that, or just remand it to a federal court, or dismiss without prejudice, so that it may be brought in an appropriate state court. So those are kind of 30,000 foot level differences. There are some differences with regard to evidence, rules of evidence. One issue that was, I guess, in my very first federal court trial, years and years ago, that came in handy to know, is that the scope of cross-examination is different. And so while in state court it's open cross-examination, just because you've talked about something on direct doesn't mean that I'm limited to direct. Well, in federal court, your cross-examination is limited to the scope of direct. And so I was able to prepare my witness, and we kept it very, very tight. And so when opposing counsel went to cross, she kept trying to get into areas that she wanted to get into, and I was, objection, Your Honor, cross outside the scope of direct, and it shut down her entire cross. I mean, she kept, we went over that. I mean, she had like 5 questions she attempted to ask that were outside, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. When we return, we'll continue our discussion with about the federal court system. Please stay with us.
Can you help me with this? My new dad teaches me all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
He helps me with homework.
That would be 3.6795.
Thanks.
Yep.
He helps me with my decision making.
I wouldn't use this one. Ever.
And he's even teaching me how to drive.
And that's why cars have bumpers.
I'm learning so much.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
Here's to the things that can keep us safe. Those we use all the time with hardly a thought. Those that are silently standing by to save our lives. And now, those that we carry with us everywhere we go. Many mobile devices will now bring you wireless emergency alerts, real-time information directly from local sources you know and trust. With the unique sound and vibration, you'll be in the know wherever you are.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back. I'm Vince Perryman, and you're watching Law Talk. Joining us on our show is Judge Charmiane Claxton, and we're discussing the federal court system. Char, before the break, we were talking about, in general, how the federal court differs from the state court and what's heard there and things of that nature. With the Western District of Tennessee, how is our district court for the federal system set up?
Sure. So the Western District of Tennessee is one of 3 districts in the state of Tennessee. We have Western, Middle, and Eastern, set up very much like our grand divisions. And then the Western District is divided into 2 sections. We have the Western section, which is based in Memphis, and the Eastern section based in Jackson. In Jackson, we have 1 district judge, Chief Judge Daniel Breen, and 1 magistrate judge Ed Bryant. We also have a senior district judge, Jim Todd, who was at one time our chief judge for the district. Here in Memphis, we have District Judge John Folks, District Judge Thomas Anderson, District Judge Cheryl Lipman, and then we have senior judges John McCullough and senior judge Hardy Mays. And then for the magistrate judges, there's Chief Magistrate Judge Diane Vescovo, Magistrate Judge Tufam, and myself. We've got a full complement, well, almost a full complement. There is a district judge seat that's open here in Memphis. There was a nominee, but I guess now that the Senate has left for the year, then the nomination will be returned to the president at the beginning of the year, and then that will be that. And so that's kind of how we're staffed here in Memphis. The matters that are heard, the Western Division generally hears matters that arise out of Shelby, Fayette, Tipton, Dyer. I think that's about right. Counties, and then the Eastern section gets everything else, the other 15, 16 counties.
So what are the typical matters that are coming before the federal court, district court in Memphis? So
again, when you're looking at the criminal side of the house and the civil side of the house, criminal side of the house, what we see quite a bit of in the prosecutions are drug and gun cases. But you can see a wide range of things, everything from fraud with regard to identity theft. You have individuals who are continuing to cash Social Security checks after someone has passed on. So they'll continue to cash those checks. That's a violation of federal law. You have terroristic threats. Had a gentleman earlier this week who entered a guilty plea in a case where he called in a threat alleging that someone was going to shoot a bus. It was the facts are pretty unfortunate. It wasn't that someone was really going to do that, but he just needed the bus to be delayed so that he could get there. And it was just a very unfortunate. And you see those cases sometimes where someone just makes a bad decision at the time and really doesn't understand the implications of it. There's one case we had where a gentleman, I guess, thought he was going to impress a young lady on a flight and told her that the tube that he had with him contained a gas that would put everyone out on the plane. Well, that then earned him a federal felony. I mean, because you can't do that. That's against the law. But again, the bulk of the cases we see are gun and drug cases, individuals who have been previously convicted of a felony and are found to be in possession of a firearm. And certainly drug trafficking and conspiracy to traffic are a significant part of the caseload. On the civil side, we see matters such as employment cases, employment discrimination, Fair Labor Standards Act cases, so individuals who come to the district court seeking to be properly compensated for either overtime or for time that they didn't receive for breaks or for donning and doffing required clothing or equipment. Patent cases, contract disputes, interstate contract disputes, international child custody cases, where you have parents from outside the United States. The one parent maybe is perhaps from the United States and says, the baby and I are going to go visit, the folks will be back after a while, and then don't come back. And then a proceeding may be started in the home country, and then a parent will file a petition here in the United States showing or attempting to show that the child really is a citizen and a resident and has more significant ties to the home country than to the United States. Don't get those often. I think I've seen 3 of those in 7.5 years, but they certainly exist. We have traffic court. Once a month, I preside over traffic court, and so if you park illegally at the VA, if you park illegally at the post office, if there's disorderly conduct at any of those places, if someone is speeding on the base, if someone seeds a field improperly so that migratory waterfowl happen to land there for purposes of hunting.
Yeah. Well, and I always laugh because I was a seasonal park ranger, so I never went through the FLETC Academy down at Glencoe.
Right.
But my friends that went on to be permanents, and they would always stop in at Memphis and stay with me, and they'd always say, my God, we always wondered where all these postal police were, and they're all in Memphis.
They're all in Memphis, right?
So,
Yeah.
And that's so the moral of the story too is don't pull in drunk to the post office.
Indeed.
Because that could be a DUI.
That's exactly right. That's exactly a DUI that will land you in federal court, which is really kind of interesting.
Yeah, I always laugh. There was a ranger that managed to pull off Bunker Hill is the sidewalk is federal, the road is state. And the guy backed up onto it, so it was a federal DUI.
There you go.
So when we return from our break, we'll talk more with Char Claxton about the federal court system.
Taking care of a family member can lead to plenty of questions. Fortunately, there's a place to get the answers, for them and for you. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
Checking your fantasy league?
Nah, just my 401k statement.
Nice. Where'd you find the money for that?
I just been saving a little every month.
I can't seem to save anything.
Well, what about all this? What about the money you're spending?
What money? It's gone before I can get my hands on it.
I got a pizza for a Todd.
Hey, can somebody spot me?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind.
It's $5.47.
Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back. With us now is Judge Char Claxton. We're talking about the federal court system. Char, before the break, I think we had covered, some of the different cases, the caseload that's handled and everything, and we talked about, you got patent cases, copyright cases, even some traffic cases on that. Now, a lot of people, with the past election, they're thinking, well, what about immigration and then Social Security? But those are different administrative courts, right?
That's right. So, for example, the immigration court, actually, the immigration judges are employees of the Department of Justice. They're not a part of our court. I mean, of course, we consider them a part of our kind of larger court family. But from a technical standpoint, as far as what's done, their matters are off to themselves. It's again more of an administrative court, akin to, I guess, like the Social Security courts. I will say that with regard to Social Security matters, appeals will come to the district court, because actually we handle some Social Security appeals, which then may go on to the Sixth Circuit. We may see some immigration matters, but not like the traditional immigration matter. There may be, we may see a petition, for example, requesting that the court order the Department of Justice to make a decision with regard to a matter. I'm trying to think of a case. We actually have so few of them that I don't have a good clear one to come to mind. Also from an immigration standpoint, on the criminal side of the house, we'll see perhaps an individual who has been previously deported, who has re-entered the United States without permission of the Attorney General, or the U.S. Attorney. Let's get it right, the Attorney General. Yeah. And then they'll be indicted for that. And so you'll have that matter on the criminal side, but we aren't actually doing deportation proceedings or asylum proceedings or anything of that nature.
Yeah, and then the district court will also handle some tax matters, but generally it's the higher end of it where you actually have to pay the tax to be able to argue in front of the district court.
That's exactly right. So. We'll see cases where, like you said, someone has paid the tax, and then they're saying, well, this wasn't classified correctly, or something of that nature, and we're seeking a refund of that money.
Yeah, and then the other question that I think, and this is always one of those where on the jury duty side of it, where folks are like, but I just did jury duty. And then they get the federal, one was state, one is the federal on that.
Yeah, different sovereigns.
Yeah.
So, sure. But we have more fun over in ours.
Yeah. Because I think, I'm trying to,
so one thing you don't have to do is you don't have to just like come, sit and hang out in a big room with a whole bunch of people and wait. Usually if you get jury duty in the federal system, you get a notice, and they say call every Friday. And the phone call will let you know whether you need to come in on Monday to be a part of a veneer that may be, it's like, because we may or may not have a need for a jury. So it's really very considerate of people's time. And then once folks are called in, then at that point they'll be maybe brought up to a court to participate on a panel.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think the last time somebody was saying, Vince, what do I do? Because I don't really want to be in jury duty or whatnot. They wound up on the federal grand jury. So.
Well, and I like to, because there are times when, as a magistrate judge, a district judge may need someone. Maybe they've got something else going on, another case, another hearing, or let's say they've got 2 jury trials running back to back, and it would be of assistance to them to have a magistrate judge select the jury for them, so that then once they're done with that first trial, then they can move right into the second trial without too much of a break in time. And so the times that I've had the opportunity to select a jury, one thing I try to emphasize to people is that there's nothing wrong with jury duty service. It's akin, I think, in a sense to military service. This is a part of your responsibility as a citizen. And after all, if you had a matter before the court where you were either a defendant, or if you were a victim, or if you were a litigant in a civil case, well, who would you want on the jury? What kind of person would you want on the jury? Would you want someone who was disinterested, or just didn't have anything else going on in their day? Or would you want someone who is active and vibrant in the community, just like you are, and is intelligent and can think through these things and can make a sound, reasoned judgment on the matter that clearly is of importance to you, or else you wouldn't be here? And so, I try to emphasize that.
Yeah, and in the scenario that I was talking about, once she was on the grand jury, she really enjoyed it.
Sure.
You know, she was like, "This is actually interesting."
Yes,
you know,
very.
give it a chance. I keep trying to get on a jury, but I happen to know all the attorneys in the room, and they're like, "Vince, get out of here."
But you know, it's surprising that sometimes we still get to, you know, there are judges that get to start jury duty and all. So it's pretty fun.
So, but with the, and then on the federal system, it's always seems like these are. It's always given the impression that these are bigger dollar cases on the civil side, just because the entry fee is higher than what it would be in state
Well,
court.
a couple things with regard to when you think bigger dollar.
Yeah.
If it's a case that could normally be brought in state court, but is only being brought in federal court because of diversity of citizenship, there has to be that $75,000 amount at controversy as kind of a threshold to even come into court. And so without that $75,000 at issue, so again, I take our car accident scenario. If we have a fender bender in the parking lot, I mean, my 5-year-old car is only worth 20 grand. And so if you hit it, you know, even if you total it out, assuming I lived in Mississippi and you lived in Tennessee, that still wouldn't be enough to get us into the federal court. It has to be of a high enough amount that it brings that significance to the table. On the other hand, you know, you can have, you know, again, you're looking at matters of, and let me I'm starting like several sentences at one time, but what I want to say is though, there are matters that are of interest to the state sovereign. So again, that automobile accident that involves 2 citizens, a dispute over real estate, that real property that is in the state of Tennessee, that is of interest to the state sovereign. And you know, the state should have jurisdiction of that matter. A murder, for example, that is as against the state. It is state versus the defendant. It only becomes a federal matter if it was committed on federal property. A murder is not just going to come to federal court just because, you know, it's a murder. But if it's committed on federal property, it then becomes of an issue to the federal sovereign. So, for example, the 2 postal employees who were murdered in Henning, Tennessee, a few years back, that murder was a federal case.
Okay. Our time is up for this edition of Law Talk. I'd like to thank our guests for taking time out of our busy schedule and being with us and sharing your thoughts and insights. If you'd like more information about Law Talk or any other program on Germantown Municipal Television, please refer to our website at www.gmtvonline.org. Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to join us next month for more legal topics. Until then, I'm Vince Perryman, and thank you for watching.